I didn't like that part of it, but I mean, I do it. I mean, if somebody asked me to do that in real life, I'd be like, hell no. But they're like, on camera, I'm like, hell yeah.
That one stage, I had one of those, you know, those little lights, those strong red beam lights.
Yes.
Like, on the ground. That was our alligator.
So you guys were like a cat.
Pretty much, yeah.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to another Modern Horror Movie Talk. I'm your host, Tyler Nichols, and we've got Mike Conway back for another one. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing great, dude. How are you?
Oh, you know, just getting into this summer movie season because it is definitely kicking off. There's a lot of good things coming out, and I'm pretty pumped to talk about them. And today's subject is a pretty exciting one because we have two very special guests. You see they're not quite on the show right now, but after we do our little review section, we will then go to some interviews with the stars of The Flood, Casper Van Dien and Nicky Whelan. So both of them are really awesome. Make sure you stay tuned till the end because there's some pretty interesting insight, which I'll try to avoid like saying as we go along, so then you can find out in the interview. But I might let something slip because there's just some fun things that I found out that I was quite surprised about. So, but before we even get into the interviews, the movie, anything like that, we have very important business to discuss. What you drinking?
Trying to watch what I'm drinking during the week. So right now I'm having a nice glass of red wine, some Cabernet. How about you, bud?
So I am currently not drinking because of stomach issues, and I don't know how long that will be lasting, but I'm still trying to get fancy things. And I got a beer, but this is a ginger beer. So I'm trying to do something where it's like a little, I don't know, almost tricks me into think I'm having like a Moscow Mule. So that's one of my favorite drinks. So
yes, same here.
I think it's the first time I've ever had ginger beer just like on its own, and it's pretty decent. I like me some ginger. I know it's not for everyone, but it's pretty decent. So yeah, cheers to you, Mike. Cheers to our viewers, and cheers to some giant alligators.
Cheers, bud.
To alcohol, the cause of and solution to all of life's problems.
So usually I talk about like essentially the, I don't know, preamble for the film, but there's not really much to talk about when it comes to anything before this, because I mean, what are we going to do? Talk about Nicky Whelan movies that came before, or Casper Van Dien movies that came before, or not going to do any of that. But there is one movie that I feel like kind of fits in with this that I think would be interesting to discuss. And that is Lake Placid, because, oh, and also Crawl, the film, the Alexandre Aja film from a few years ago, because both about alligators. And so I think that it kind of fits in with this topic. And so what's your opinions of like those films and just alligator films in general?
Well, before I get into that, I could throw one more movie in the mix, and that would be Assault on Precinct 13. Because I got huge Precinct 13 vibes from that one. Like pretty much, it felt like at one point, if I forgot that I was watching an alligator movie, and I was like more watching the Assault on Precinct 13 movie. Yeah. But as far as the other two movies you're talking about, I haven't seen Lake Placid since it first came out, but I remember really, really liking it. It's a good time. Crawl, though, I loved Crawl. That one was definitely one of those edge on your seat movies, and I watched it by myself.
If anything, I would say that the one disadvantage of having seen Crawl before this is that you kind of get to see like how to handle it and do it in a real like classy way versus this where it's much more B movie, and it makes a little more sense when you find out about some of the behind the scenes that went on with it, but we'll get into that later on. And
yeah, that's something I really want to know about, is the behind the scenes things. What were they thinking?
I mean, well, I guess I'll say too, I love me some Lake Placid, and the first moment I even saw this trailer, I was like, ooh, because the trailer makes it seem like there's a giant alligator that's like leading these other gators. That is not the case at all. So we need to get into all of that. So let's talk The Flood. A daring jailbreak during a dangerous Louisiana hurricane is interrupted by a horde of large, hungry alligators. So first we have our non-spoiler section, but I mean, really the only thing we're really going to talk about in the spoiler section is specific deaths, because there's so much you can get into with this film that are technically spoilers, but everyone is kind of anticipating it. So non-spoiler, what did you think of The Flood?
Okay, this one was a really tough one to judge. On one hand, the CGI is so horrific, but I'm going into this movie already knowing that but on the other hand, like there's some parts in there that I actually did kind of jump at, like whenever the sheriff, she's slowly closing that door in, and then all of a sudden, like the alligator just jumped in. I actually jumped at that part.
Yeah, there was some jump scares that work, but for the most part, most of the alligator action is so like tension free. Mm-hmm. It's essentially the only bit of tension at any point, I think, is there's a character who has to go down in like a basement, and most of the tension comes from the fact that he's in that water for so much of the time where we don't see the gator, so we're like anticipating it being there. But then when it finally happens, it's so like quick and it doesn't even leave much of an impact, where I don't know. I couldn't get into the gator aspect of this at all, because they feel so fake and not there. And this gets brought up in the interview stuff, but we have to discuss it because it kind of gives more context for the rest of the movie. They didn't have any representation for the gators on set. No physical anything. Not a dummy that they could look at. Not a tennis ball. I think that element, as soon as you find that out, it's like, oh yeah, because it really doesn't feel like they're interacting with anything that these gators are interacting with. It just doesn't work. Well, if they did that, then that one scene is like towards the end. I'm not going to spoil it, but Big Jim, the character Big Jim, when he's doing all that stuff, that part was kind of entertaining. So if it was doing that against nothing, then that's pretty cool to me. The one thing that I thought was really interesting with all the characters is how much they actually feel like, I don't know, layered people. I mean, they can be pretty one-dimensional in terms of their evilness, but they actually do a decent job. Like the black character, I feel like they do a good job with, and same with the super like neo-Nazi guy. Because he has quite the up and down little arc where it's honestly, you kind of pull for him slightly, just because it seems like he's somewhat seen the error of his ways, even if it's just because of a life and death situation. But I thought that element was quite interesting, because I didn't expect it. I expected all of the convicts to just be completely forgettable, but I actually enjoyed the convicts. See, that's the other thing I was talking about. Like, I was juggling back and forth on how I like this, because I don't like the alligator stuff. Like it, like you said, it just seems really, really fake. But when I was more interested in all the prisoners, and every single time an alligator showed up, I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah. Casper Van Dien is like so good in that he's so mysterious, and they don't really explain his character thoroughly until much closer to the end than you would expect. He's very much that guy who's just kind of a mysterious dude in the shadows, kind of, which is not what I expected. Yeah, I've always liked Casper Van Dien, especially because of, like you said, Starship Troopers and Sleepy Hollow. I saw Sleepy Hollow like when it released on DVD, so I was way too young at the time. I probably would have been like 8, and so that one really stood out to me, even though it's not like his character is anything like that really stands out a ton in the movie, but he does. So I think that he's always just an element that I'm like, if I see him in something, I'm like, yep, I'll watch it for Casper Van Dien. Yeah, he's got some serious star power. Like, I just wish somebody would put him in a big budget movie and get his face more out in the world and say, hey, I'm still here. Have him with Brendan Fraser. Do it again with Casper Van Dien. I'm sure he's an incredible person, so bring him back. He was in Alita Battle Angel for a scene. Yeah, that's about it. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm hoping that we end up getting to see him in more things. But also, I really like this little niche that he has in the horror grindhousey world, because I feel like it's very underappreciated when people do that and do it for a living and do it so well. And so I like that. So how'd you feel about the movie? my review should have gone out on joblo.com last week, and I didn't like it. Like you had said, I liked the kind of the assault on precinct 13 aspect. And honestly, one movie that got brought up in the interviews a lot was Con Air. And I as soon as they even mentioned it, I'm like, yep, I see the influence, and especially in Casper Van Dien's character and the Nick Cage character in that, where it's like, yeah, I can definitely see those parallels. I enjoyed that, but there's just the gator stuff just is so bad. And I think that as soon as I found out that they didn't have any physical representation on set, like, it's like, yep, that's why everything looks so bad, because those poor special effects guys just had to create something from nothing. They didn't have light references, and like that's just, you can't do it.
Yeah, I don't really want to trash the CGI. I actually especially said that, and I looked these guys up, and if they didn't have anything to work with, then I think they did what they could do.
Yeah.
And Saban put this film out, right? Give them their Power Rangers money.
They've been pretty firmly in the horror world. It's pretty interesting. Because it's funny, anytime I do see these Saban films, I'm always just like, Power Rangers.
Yeah.
But it kind of catches me off guard a little bit. Another person that I want to talk about is Luis Mandalore, Luis Mandalore, and I assume it's Luis. But I had no idea who this guy was until I'm watching the movie, and I'm like, wait a minute. That looks like the bad guy from Saw, Costas Mandalore. And that was when I had the connection of, oh, they're related. Okay, that makes total sense. That's why they look exactly the same. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is just the weird hurricane aspect of this, because it seemed like I understand why they do it, but it's to the point where like they show this one shot of the outside of the police station so many times. And it's like, I guess it's just supposed to be showing that like the hurricane's getting worse, but it really doesn't seem like it is. And so I had a hard time with just the fact that they just use the hurricane as such an excuse of like, oh yeah, this is why this happens and that happens and this happens, where I'm like, you're giving me explanations for shit that I don't care about, versus I want an explanation for why these gators are doing this and why they're targeting this police station. Yeah,
it also looks like the fake rain, the rain overlay didn't work quite well either. Like I was trying to look at the characters, like, are they actual like a rain machine on them? Because it looks like just little drops are dropping on them and just like heavy rain.
Because that was one thing that I was shocked, was that they're shooting in knee-deep water at different points. It's like, that just had to have been absolutely miserable. Who wants to film and just be in water for especially a low-budget movie? Like, I always think of because I kept seeing parallels between this and Alien Resurrection when it came to the underwater alligator stuff, how they moved, how the scene looked. It very much reminded me of Resurrection. And so I then think of the behind the scenes of Resurrection, where the tank they were in, because they filmed for like 6 weeks, and the tank they were in got disgusting to the point where like they were getting like cast and crew were getting sick. So then I think of this indie movie, and I'm like, oh, that water must just be the grossest. There's definitely moments that just feel, just feel very strange in how they come off, because they feel, they don't have any kind of fun to it either. Like the story, you would expect a alligator movie like this to be more fun. But it really, the most of the fun that I had was just the unexpected insanity that would go on either with the convicts or like something that I loved so much, and I made sure to even tell her, was how Nicky Whelan, she like has this disgust towards like both the convicts, but also her coworkers who are just like inept and not doing their job. And so One of my favorite parts was just seeing her disgust with just the situation around her, because like, again, there's not a lot to grab onto in terms of the story, so then you're looking at other elements to kind of get entertainment out of, and most of my entertainment came from the characters.
Yeah, she pretty much turned into Sonya Blade for a second there when she's fighting the comets are coming out of their cages.
Yeah. Well, and did you notice too that usually in these kinds of movies, the characters get like worn down and look worse? She gets hotter and hotter as the movie goes on, to the point where at the end, she is just in full smoke show mode, where it was like, damn, I didn't even realize you were battling gators this whole time.
The things I liked about it are the characters, like you said. The one that stands out other than the leads was Big Jim. Who played Big Jim? What was his name again?
Ewan O'Brien.
Okay. Well, yes, I enjoyed him. And he says some pretty cringy stuff. Everybody says some pretty cringy stuff in this movie. But it was like the way he was alligator wrestling at the very end. I guess, can we get into spoilers? Or whenever Big Jim is alligator wrestling, and the way he's treating him, I was like, he looks like he's actually from Louisiana and he knows how to fight these things. And it was kind of charming, even though he got eaten in half like 20 of it.
Charming, and then immediately looks like a fucking idiot because he clearly doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, just the way he was like petting him, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cute. Everybody else, they're okay. The overtly racist guy, the stuff that was coming out of his mouth
made me uncomfortable.
It was uncomfortable, but something he said, I couldn't quit laughing. Just the way he delivered it. The other people who are breaking in to break out Casper Van Dien's character, he calls him. He's like, "I'll help you out, white brother." Just the way he says, it's, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the Jocks? Jocks is the black dude, which I only say that to then be like, that way the neo-Nazi aspect of it, because then it makes a little more sense when Jocks is like, fuck you, and lets him drop down into the gators. But even that I feel like that was an interesting moment, specifically because they've built these characters up and they're very much on opposing sides, and now it's this life and death situation. Like, that was probably the most interesting scene in the entire movie for me, just because it actually felt unique and, I don't know, felt interesting.
Yeah, it held on their hands for quite a while. I was like, oh, is he actually going to bring him up? That'd be pretty rad if he did it. And nope, just let him go.
Yeah. Anytime you think that this movie is going to be original, it then just takes the most stereotypical turn that you could possibly imagine. I mean, that's just one of those things that happens, I guess. I can't be too upset about it because it's still an alligator movie. Like, that's the thing. It's like, I'm not expecting high art from this, but I am expecting to be entertained. And unfortunately, the film really doesn't do that a lot of the time. And in particular, there was one thing that really pissed me off, and I watched this with a buddy, and we laughed our asses off at this. It's that his name is Russell Cody. That's Casper Van Dien's character. And then Nicky Whelan, they are shooting at this alligator, and they pump so many rounds into this thing, and this alligator is like unaffected, completely unaffected. The alligator is slowly pursuing Jocks, who it's like the film seems to be setting up of like, hey, we might actually see this guy live. And it's such a slow death in terms of like the creeping towards him and them shooting. And then the thing that then just the cap off that just does not work is that the moment that alligator gets Jocks and kills him, then suddenly the guns work and they kill him. They kill the alligator.
Yeah. She grabbed the pistol. Yeah, she's like, give me that pistol.
Yeah, or it's like, you guys couldn't you couldn't have had that like sense of like, you know, go-getterness like a little sooner, so that then you could have saved this poor guy.
And Josh is just sitting there the whole time, like that security guy in Austin Powers when he's about to get ran over by this little steamroller thing. Just sitting there, man. Oh, also, yeah. Whenever they drop the racist guy and they're just unloading all their rifles and everything, it's like not one of these bullets is not going to hit the guy and kill the guy because he's right on top of him.
Yes, that was one thing that cracked me up. Where it's like, okay, are they trying to shoot him? Like, do they want to shoot him to like let him out of his misery? But yeah, there's just stuff that I think is really dumb, and I don't understand why they did it, but I assume that a lot of the answers to that is budget. I just assume like they filmed this in Bangkok, and they filmed it in like an old warehouse where then I'm sure that they just whatever they could do for whatever the amount of money, and it seems to be that they're riding on the names of the main cast to then hopefully get this to be seen. Which, I mean, that's the case for a lot of these B movies and these kinds of films. But it's just unfortunately, because there's plenty of them that are fun and do work. Like, I mean, another Casper Van Dien film, Mad Heidi, which it should be coming out digitally. I think it actually came out digitally last week. It's so much fun, and him in particular, where then it's like, this is what I want. Even this, because then even the stuff that doesn't entirely work, I'm still entertained. Yet in this one, the stuff that doesn't work, it just kind of is boring and makes me ready for it to be over, in all honesty.
I feel like I think this is one of those few times where you and I really agree on a movie.
Yeah. I mean, I knew going into this that it wouldn't be anything incredible, but again, I wanted just fun. I wanted dumb fun. I am very much a lover of the so bad it's good genre, and this one's just, I mean, middle of the road. It doesn't really speak in any like one way or the other in terms of actually being good or being like really bad. It's just, again, it's this middle of the road and just didn't work for me in particular. So what would your final rating for this be?
Oh man. All right. So I've been torn throughout the whole movie. At one point it was at 6, 1 point it was a 5, 1 point it was a 4. Overall, 4. It's gonna be a 4 for me.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. 4 out of 10, I think, is pretty fair. It's, in terms of the content of the movie, it's probably more like a 5. But then the alligators just being so bad, and that this is an alligator movie, so like the alligators being so bad just then really work against it, and just how fucking sentient. They are so sentient in such a strange way. Give us a reason, like that. There's their nest. They have a nest that got like the hurricane washed it away from where it was, and it's up. It ended up going right to the police station. Just something that then we're like, okay, yep, they're protecting it. They're protecting its young. We don't get any of that. These things are just out to kill. Like, it's so silly. Oh, and I guess before we even get into wrapping it up, the actual ending, I want to talk about, because it is so anticlimactic. It just ends. Like he kills Louis Mandylor, and it's just done. And they go out on jet skis, and then they go their separate ways. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
what?
They do their Fast and the Furious split off.
Yeah, or the Batman. Yeah,
that one too. So I was confused. Was she saying that Casper Van Dien's character didn't make it and now she's just letting him go free, or is she just saying, you saved us, here's
a chance?
Yeah,
I asked her this. So I was like, so do you see your character, because there's clearly some connection with you guys. Do you see your character like getting, what did I say? I'll actually put in the actual part of the interview here. But it's essentially that, are you going to then run off with Casper Van Dien's character, or are you treating it as, here's 48 hours and then I'm coming after you because I care about the law? And she said she thinks that her character is in love with Russell Cody, so she would do whatever helps him out. So I find that interesting.
They were making pretty babies.
They would make some gorgeous babies. In fact, I told them this. I want to see a sequel to this, only not involving the gators. I want to see what Russell Cody is doing with this money. Let me know. Let me know what the heck, what is going on. Because I find that to be that aspect. I feel like there's another movie in this movie that is more interesting than the film we got. It's like, I want to see how Russell Cody got this money. I want to see what he does after with this money. It's like, I don't really care about this part of the story.
It makes me wonder how this movie would have played if it was released in 2005.
Yeah, or the 90s.
Or the 90s, because the dialogue, the script is really... At some point, it reminded me of the dialogue in Land of the Dead, just the way they're talking back and forth. Not saying I actually really enjoy Land of the Dead. It's just like some of the dialogue is just really cringy, and that's exactly what it felt like. It felt like a middle of the road, mid 2000s, late 90s movie. So I wonder if this movie came out then, how would it be playing now? Yeah. But either way, we got what we got.
If they had if the Gators had been a little more impactful, I think that would have made for a very different and more satisfying movie. But they weren't, and so it wasn't. That's I feel like that's really all. We pretty much have covered it, and so stay tuned after this whole section, and we'll throw to the interviews with Casper and Nicky. But before we do that, next week, I am so excited about this, guys, because I have been wanting to talk about this film for months. Next week, we are talking Cobweb, and Lance Velchek will be on the show, and I'll just give you guys a little tease right now. It is my favorite film of the summer. But yeah, that's really all. Make sure you stay tuned for our awesome interviews with Casper and Nicky, and we'll see you in the next episode. So first of all, Casper, it's great to see you again. I hope that your Florida screening of Mad Heidi went well.
It did. It was a lot of fun. They're coming out with that online right now, so that they're going to be doing. I'm doing more interviews with it next week, I think.
Oh, nice! So, very cool.
So, yeah, that one's still haunting me.
Well, my screening was also completely packed, and it was an absolute blast. So,
what was it? I'm so glad to hear it. Thank you, and thanks for having a screening of it.
Yeah, well, and so with The Flood, I think that to say your character of Russell Cody is mysterious would be a bit of an understatement. So, did you have fun playing with the audience expectation of what direction your character would go in?
That was one of the things that was intriguing for me. When they first pitched it to me, they said, Casper, okay, it's Con Air meets Anaconda, but with alligators. And I went, oh, and then I read it and I loved my character. Like Nick Cage's character in Con Air, he's a criminal with a conscience. He regrets what happened. He was a good soldier, just like Nick Cage was, who just was thinking he was doing something. He was trying to stand up for his wife. Me, I was trying to just make some money. I didn't know that, that they would kill cops, and then I would be then blamed for that too. And so it's a huge, what he has to go through. There's a lot of black and white and gray area. There's not a lot of black and white. There's a lot of gray areas with all the characters, because you're not sure what they're all going to do. Cops, the bad guys, and then the criminals that are already there. And then the new bad guys coming in to break it out. And then you have alligators that thrown in the flood. Now I live in Florida. We don't mess around with the alligators. Well, some people do. They get eaten by it. That's the Darwin Awards, I think. But if an alligator got shoved during a flood, if it got shoved into a room and you're in a room and the water would get dark because of all the dirt and everything else like that, you're in the water with them there, you're gone, because they'll bite at whatever is there, because they're now shocked, in trauma and shock, and they're also they're going to be like, so it would be a nightmare scenario. Now, we didn't have actual alligators, but we did have rats and snakes that we had to be careful in the water that we were in.
For the alligators themselves, since they were CGI, did you guys have anything on set to help represent them, or were the tennis balls, or was it just they're there? Imagine them there.
They're there. Imagine them there. Now, I don't know if anybody else had it. I didn't in my scenes. Now, I did see the people get pulled, and we had the stunts that we had, and we had the water thing. So we did have that. But, I'm used to this. I did Starship Troopers, so we never had any real bugs there.
Yeah.
And so it's just what you have to go back to, that innocence of the child, like to have the imagination to still bring it to life. Mm-hmm. Now, I hope it did. I haven't seen it, so I don't know how it turned out.
Oh, you haven't seen the movie?
No, I haven't seen it yet. You've seen it. Some of the people that have interviewed me have seen it. They loved it so far. Everybody said, it's a rated R movie, which I think is great for this kind of movie. It'd be silly to make this a PG movie. There's no nudity in it that I know of. I wasn't involved in any if there was. But I do know that people got eaten by alligators. And I saw the stunts. I didn't see the CGI put in of it afterwards. I can't wait.
One of the things that I noticed is, because I always love the logistics of filming and filmmaking, and so I noticed that you guys are in knee-deep water for a lot of this movie. And so what was that process even like? Were you literally in knee-deep water?
So it was this abandoned building, and then they were able to make it waterproof. Mm-hmm. But it's abandoned, so there's snakes and rats and bugs and everything. They'd fill up the water in the morning. It'd be clean-ish.
Yeah.
But to be clear, we'd start filming before the morning even gets to be the end of morning. It'd be mud water. And I'm saying mud water because it was knee deep, waist deep, and higher, because it kept getting higher. So there's different parts where they'd fill it up higher, and we'd be in this fighting in this. And so what happens is people get dunked underwater, they come up, snot comes out of their nose, they're just like this, but it's all in a contained little room. So you're in other people's like coughing and sneezing and coming up, and dirty clothes and dirty underwear, and people sweating and all moving the equipment in and out, and bugs that you're seeing a cockroach dead, and you heard that there was rats in it in the morning, they had to clear it out, so there's everything goes that. So that part of it is disgusting. And I don't like that part, but it also made it more realistic, because because you don't know if, when you're walking in this water, if you're going to get bit by a snake or a rat, or if you're going to come across anything gross. And so that part of it was real.
Well, and that's funny. It's funny you mentioned that, because one of the parallels that I kept noticing, both in the visual language of the movie, but also in just certain scenes, is Alien Resurrection. And I know that they had such issues with like filming and being underwater. And so all I could think with this, I'm like, well, it's more indie film. So how did they even pull this off, and in a like sanitary way, but emptying the set every day? That will do it.
Empty it every day, but then they refilmed it every night. But it's in a rat-infested building that's disgusting. There's no way that they could do the right chemicals for it. Plus, everybody's going in and out. They're not in bathing suits. When I was a lifeguard in Florida when I was younger, and I would be in charge, you'd have to test the pool, and certain times you'd have to get them out, and that'd be people all supposedly showering before they go in, and bathing suits. Now we're in clothes, and the crew's in clothes, going out in the shoes in mud and dirt and all the different things that come into it. Whatever people are doing in there, I don't even want to know. And if people are just like, if they're not getting out to pee, which there some people did. Like at the end of the day, like literally the fight sequence between Louis and I, he has to shove my head underwater. Now I've already seen people blowing their nose out, seeing the cockroaches, knowing it's the end of the day, so it's the dirtiest the water is, and I have to go under. I didn't like it. I didn't like that part of it, but I mean, I do it. I mean, if somebody asked me to do that in real life, I'd be like, hell no. But they're like, on camera, I'm like, hell yeah.
Exactly. That moment gets to live forever, so it was worth it. Well, and so you fought giant bugs and now murderous alligators. What killer animal do you see yourself facing off against next?
Oh, I don't know, but I love it. I've fought against sharks in movies, and vampires, and giant bugs who are great, and different. It's all fun for me. I love it. I love this aspect of it. I love these different characters too. I love working with Louis Mandylor, who I had worked on Battle for Saipan with, which was shot in the same place in Thailand with the same producer and the same director, and then Louis and I got to do this again. But now we added Nicky Whelan, and she's just amazing. She's such a badass. She's such a talented actress, and her and my wife are really good friends now, and we just love her. We're just lucky we have her in our life.
That's awesome. Well, and so I'm not going to say what it is, but the movie ends on a note where I could definitely see a sequel with your character, and it doesn't necessarily have to even involve alligators. So what do you imagine Russell Cody heading off and doing?
Well, getting that money. That's what I reckon. But however he's going to live and whatever happens afterwards, there's a lot of things that could happen. If they want to, I'm totally down with it. So yeah. I'm open for that. I just got a call from David Lipper, who wants me to do Hunt Club 2, which is the one I did that just came out that had Mickey Rourke in it and Mina Savari, and I play in that one. I play a not so good guy either.
Well, I'll have to keep an eye out for that one.
Yeah, it's out right now. That one's out. Hunt Club's out right now, but that one they want to do a sequel already with my character, which.
Awesome. Well, the world needs more Casper in the world. So thank you so much for joining me today. And you have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too, Tyler. I appreciate it. And when you get it all done, make sure you Instagram it to me or tweet it to me, and I'll follow and tweet.
Awesome. Okay, sounds good.
Let's get a few things straight. You're in my house now. I will not hesitate to shoot you if I have to.
So hi, Nikki. I am Tyler from JoBlo.com. And first of all, I know your time is valuable, so thank you so much for joining me today.
So fine. I'm well aware of you guys. I think I did a shoot with you guys a while ago.
Oh, nice. Very, very cool. So one of the first things that I noticed when watching the film is that you are knee deep in water for so much of it. So please tell me that you were in rain slickers or something when it wasn't a wide shot.
No, I had socks and shoes and Dickies pants on. It was tough. And we have a short time to sort of shoot this movie, 2 weeks. We're in this massive, sort of this huge broken down building in the middle of Bangkok in this filthy sort of car park area filled with slush and mud. And they're just bringing these water trucks in and filling up the factory the entire movie. So it's not heated. But luckily it's tropical weather, so it's kind of warm, but it's night shoots and you've got this filthy water just filling up and you're in it for 12 hours. And I remember sitting at lunch just drenched and I'm like, there's no point in getting dry because I've got to get back in it. And I'd just be kind of sitting there eating lunch, just so uncomfortable. And there's nothing you can do. And you just kind of got to suck it up. And it was, we all felt it. I mean, everyone handled it really well. The crew are incredible because they're standing in that with their equipment and stuff. And remember, electrical stuff. So everything's got to be very safe and secure. I mean, everything about this movie was a challenge. And I'm so proud of it coming together.
Well, that's when I'm also a filmmaker. So then seeing that kind of stuff and seeing the layer of water that just increases as the movie goes on.
You get it, right?
Yes. All I can think of is the logistics of it all. Where it's like, oh no, these poor actors.
And poor crew and poor everybody. Yeah.
Was it enough for you to go, I'm not going in water for my next couple of movies?
You always feel so good after you've done stuff like this. This kind of kicked all of our asses in a really good way, but it definitely did. And I felt so accomplished afterwards and it was an adventure. So now I'll get back in the water.
So one of my favorite aspects of the movie is your character's just disgust with the situation, whether it's her coworkers who don't do their jobs or the convicts and the very gross things that they say. So you just constantly seem fed up with the events that are going on around you. So is that an active choice or just something that happened given the circumstances of the film?
I think it's just the stuff that keeps getting thrown at her. She's got these people working for her that she's just like, come on. And then now her entire department is filling with water. Now she's getting prisoners she has to take care of for the night, really bad prisoners. Now there's alligators that are coming to kill them all. And then you've got the terrorists that try and take over. So she's got everything going against her. It's funny because she does start out really badass, fed up. But toward the end, you do notice her kind of developing these strange relationships to survive the night with everybody. She doesn't really care if they die, but she's also, it's her job to keep them alive. But they're also trying to kill her, but she's trying to keep them alive. There's so much happening for me, because they don't care if they kill each other, but my job is to keep them alive. so there's just so much going on. My poor character.
I was shocked to hear that you guys had to really use your imagination when it came to the gators and had no physical representation of the beasts on set. So as an actor, do you like having that freedom, or is like the tangible easier to connect with to like actually be in the moment if you were to have like an actual like fake gator there?
I would have liked a fake gator, to be honest with you, because for me, you just have to use your imagination, but especially there are scenes where some of the guys really interact and had sort of get trapped in with them, and they had to do so much to make that work. I would have loved to have had something a little bit more tangible to work with, because you're holding the suspense and for nothing in front of you, and people don't understand that, and it's sort of like it's kind of weird. And there's times when there's all groups of us all together, sort of looking in this area, sort of having to react and move with it at the same time. I mean, we didn't have a lot of time to shoot this. So there's parts where I'm like, I wish we'd sort of, that one stage they had one of those, those little lights, those strong red beam lights.
Yes.
Like on the ground. That was our alligator.
So you guys were like a cat.
Pretty much. Yeah. So it was like, but again, it's how do you bring that in and how do you do it? So it's just, you got to really dig deep and use your imagination.
I can imagine that being very, very difficult, especially with how much the gators are involved with the story. And so I talked to Casper last week, and he actually had not seen the movie yet. Have you seen the film?
Yes, I got to see it.
Oh, okay.
I love Casper. He's badass. Him and his wife, the greatest people. They're fun. I want to make more movies with them. They're great.
Yeah, he had absolutely wonderful things to say about you. And so this movie is a bit open-ended. We won't get into why and how, but so do you see your character like dropping out of law enforcement to go join him, or going on a journey to arrest him?
I think she's tempted. I think that's what I loved. It's so funny. We shot the last scene of this movie on the very first day. So I hadn't been through the adventure with his character yet. And so I didn't even know how to play it at the end, because I wanted to experience what we go through and then really make up my own mind toward the end of how I wanted to play it out. So I think, I don't know, I kind of wish we could have done it the other way around, but in the end, and the way I look at it, I kind of think she misses him. I don't know, without giving too much away, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
There's a part of her that's like,
Yeah, if anything, I would say that that's one of the things I was disappointed in the film, was that I wanted to see more of you guys together, because it seemed like by the time you guys are finally paired together, it was like, this seems very interesting. But then I feel like it ended too soon. So I'm hoping that we get some kind of sequel. We don't even need to have the gators come back.
I wish that too. I feel like there could have been more character development for him and I, but because of the things that are happening, the alligators, the water's rising, the terrorists are coming up as we're trying to keep everybody alive. There is a scene where we're upstairs where we talk for quite some time, but even that felt wrong, shooting that, because if you really had a bunch of prisoners and you've got alligators coming at you, you're not about to bond with someone. It's very hard to create, because we're sharing the space with all the other characters too. It was just a movie of him and I on this mission. There could have been those moments, but I agree with you. I know it's just hard to bring us together sincerely. Such high sort of suspense,
Yeah. And one thing that actually kind of shocked me about the movie was that you have all of these different convicts, and they all seem to be very, very just evil, but then it kind of plays with it a little bit, where even like the most evil, they try and make you feel for them. So I really enjoyed that element. And so were there any people, like when you were reading the script, we were like, oh yeah, this guy's going to be like a good guy and actually survive and beat our expectations? Because I kind of felt that with one of the characters, and then he ended up getting offed.
I know I know who you're talking about. I love this movie because of the characters that you can choose. I remember they've got all these prisoners, and I said to Damon, our producer, who are you getting to play all these guys? Like, where are you sourcing them all from? Because they're so specific and different. It's like Con Air. Remember Con Air?
Yes.
And all the characters. So when we get up and we get to Thailand, I meet all these guys. They're all polar opposite from each other, and they've all got such good hearts, and they're such badass dudes that all come from different areas of life coming together in sort of this movie. And you do sort of, even the really nasty ones, and I know the one you're talking about, I'm like, no. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, my final question is, so last year you fought a giant shark, and now this year it's a murderous alligators. And so is there any other killer animal that you're wanting to face off against next?
You know, they should just send me to Australia because everything there kills you. So I'm sure we could make like a whole TV series down there.
Yeah, and then you can use your natural accent too, not have to do these American accents.
I know. Look, these movies are fun to make. They're action packed. They're scary. They're kind of got a bit of an 80s and 90s vibe to them.
Yes.
You know, kind of horror, kind of that whole thing. They're fun. They're fun. Great movies for people to go out and watch. It's good entertainment, and it's really a fun experience to be part of them.
Well, I could not agree more. And thank you so much for this. This has been wonderful. You have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks. Love you too.